faith, family and freedom in Cuba, Belgium, Brazil, Congo, UK and all over the USA to crowds from 14 to 40,000. International leadership speaker, trainer and coach. Author of Learn to Raw Leadership, Attitude Hack, Live a More Excellent Life, 5 Battle Strategies of a Victorious Warrior. 2021 President's Lifetime Achievement Award recipient. Founding partner of the John Maxwell team. Toastmaster International Speech Competition semi-finalist. Founder of Tell It Like It Is TV, ThatGuyRocks.com and ThatGuySpeaks.com. Creator of Story Power TV, Transforming Grace TV, and Leading Leaders Podcast. Producer of 4 TV programs and podcasts for Liftable TV and World Trumpet Television as well as multiple social media channels. Please help me welcome J Loren Norris.
If you've ever had someone who encourages you to, take a little shortcut, to do things that are, well, maybe they're not on the up and up. Maybe they're just a little bit questionable. In fact, most people are already doing it that way. But down deep inside that it's the wrong thing to do. It's not just socially wrong or culturally wrong, but it's morally wrong. It's not just a violation of a policy or a law. It's wrong in every sense. Then you have a foundation that we call values. And as a leader that those values are priceless. That's what I want to talk about today on Leading Leaders. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and there's probably been at least one time in your leadership journey, whether it was early on when you made that first step into leadership, when you became the manager of a small group or a shift supervisor or just the one responsible for a group. My son recently took a job where he's kind of a crew leader, and there may be 3 or 4 or 5 people that are working with or under him that he's responsible for making sure that they do their jobs well. Well, this is a new leadership role for him. It's a new place where he's responsible for the behavior, the actions, the quality of work of another group of people. And that is a new role in leadership. It's a new role for anybody in that level of leadership. And when you're in your early 20s, that's a challenging role. But see, there's always the question in a role, especially in early in life and early in leadership role, will you hold the values of not only the policies and the laws, but the moral values of the organization that you serve? Will you hold the values that you hold of your own? Can you hang on to them in the face of the temptation to do otherwise? See, it's real easy to have someone come along who says, if you'll just look the other way on this one small thing, don't tell anybody that I showed up late or that I clocked in early. Don't tell anybody that I took an extra 45 minutes on my break. Don't tell anybody that my lunch hour was actually twice. And don't tell anybody that I've been on the phone the whole time because I've had my earbud in and I haven't really been paying attention to my work. I've just been kind of going through the motions because I've really been on the phone the whole time. See, these are the little things that a leader has to make a decision, a judgment call on. And the judgment is, will I hold to the values of right versus wrong? Do I understand that there is an absolute right versus wrong, a truth and then everything else? And as a leader, when you're challenged on those things, it's really easy to, go to the side of your friend or go to the side of what's going to create the least amount of friction in your organization. Go to the side of, well, here's how I'm going to make peace, if you will, with all the people that I have to work with every day, to go along, to get along, even if that going along with the crowd is going against your values. Going along with the crowd is going against what you believe to be true, what you know to be right. It's easy when you're young in life and young in leadership to get caught up in that, I want to be everybody's friend. I want to be in the peer pressure aspect. I want to be the one that everybody turns to, not the one everybody turns against. Now, as you get more advanced in your leadership, and I mean more advanced in years and more advanced in the kind of leadership that you're responsible for, when that goes from a team of maybe 3 or 4 to a team of 3 or 400 or 3 or 4,000, or, the position of some corporate CEOs, 300 or 400,000 people, now all of a sudden you've got a little different category of pressure. The pressure doesn't usually come from the team that you're leading. It comes from outside, because really what they want to do is exert pressure on you as the leader to take your large team to do something that maybe isn't within the line of policy or within the line of moral right and wrong, or even within the line of the law. I mean, honestly, if you look back at the generally accepted accounting practices, the GAAP rules as they are known, they changed because of Enron. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you go back and study what happened at the corporate offices of Enron in the late 90s and early 2000s, and even into as late as 2010, Enron as a company was moving money behind the scenes. They were taking in investments. They were taking people's 401ks. They were taking people's stock purchases and using them to create basically what turned out to be a Ponzi scheme. Now, the people in leadership at various levels were aware that what was happening wasn't what they told the public. What was happening wasn't what they told the legal people, from tax accountants to regular accountants to stockbrokers. That what was actually happening and what they were telling the world was entirely different. Well, at some level, every leader knew that what they were doing it's a little bit not right. What they were doing was criminal. And many of them caught some time and some hefty fees as a result of that. And because of the way that they manipulated the system, the way that they played on the peer pressure, the way that they utilized marketing tools and things of that nature to get their win, so to speak, the way that they cheated people to get their win, changed the way the rules are written. They didn't just bend the rules that existed, they broke them so badly new rules had to be made. Now, if you work in an organization as a leader, whether it's 3 or 5 people, 3 or 500 people, 3 or 5,000 people, or 300,000 people that you lead, if you work in an organization as a leader, there will be a time, I promise you there will be a time, that someone will ask you to check your values at the door to go along with the company policy, to check your values at the door to go along with popular opinion, to check your values at the door to go along with the political winds of the day. Good leaders know that values are priceless, meaning there is no price tag you can put on our values. If you hold your values and your moral values to be compass driven, that you know what they are and they don't change, those values, they're principles like the roots of a tree. Sure, the wind's going to blow the tree around, and the leaves may come off the tree, and limbs may break off the tree, but it's going to take a mighty, forceful wind from a sustained time period and direction pushing against that tree to uproot it. Values should be like that tree. Not just moving with the wind as it changes directions, not fearing the leaves that go away, that fall in the summer or the winter and come back in the spring and the summer. Not that kind of tree, but the kind of tree that says, I'm going to stand my ground. Now, if you've ever noticed, a small tree, 2 or 3 inches in diameter, can stop a truck or a car. A semi might be a little different. That's 80 to 90,000 pounds hurtling at you down the highway. But a tree the size of a baseball bat will generally hold its ground against a regular sized car. A tree of 18 to 20 inches in diameter will destroy a car. It's an immovable object. Your values should be the same. Your values, as you grow deeper in your leadership, your deep-rooted values should grow deeper in you as well. The longer that you are in leadership and the older that you are in life, the more mature, presumably, as you age, you also age in maturity as well, then your tree trunk of values should become substantial. And it's not a little twig anymore, it's a trunk that will hold you. It's not just roots that are on the surface sticking up out of the dirt looking for oxygen and water, but roots that have gone down deep because those values have been watered by reinforcements over and over and over again. And if you are that kind of leader where your values have gone deep, where your roots run deep, then you know those values are priceless. That's not a tree you want to chop down at a whim. If you've invested in being a person of integrity, if you've done your homework and you know what right is from wrong, and you know not only that it's not politically expedient today, but in the long run, it's going to be well worth it. It's going to pay off to face the resistance today so that you can stand strong later. If you know that as a leader, then you know there is no price tag that can be put on your values. You have to hold on to them. Oh, somebody's going to want to buy them out. Somebody's going to want to change your opinion. Somebody's going to want you to go along to get along. Somebody's going to want you to walk away from what you've believed all your life and go with the crowd because, well, obviously, the more of them there are who believe that, the more right it is, right? No, not the case. If you have strong moral values, if they have been well-grounded and well-founded, then hold on to them. In this day and age, believe it or not, values are becoming commodities. People want to buy them off left and right. They want you to change your opinion and change your approach, change your political views on a moment's notice. In fact, even if you've got a completely different view today than you had tomorrow, as long as it's politically expedient, roll with it. Go wherever the wind blows like a kite on a string that's tied to nothing. But that's not what values look like. Values are established. And if you're not sure what your values are, then maybe you should begin asking yourself that question. What are the things that are most important to me? What are the ideas that I hold stronger to than I do the idea of having this job? Tom Peters mentioned it back in the early 2000s. He said, the idea of job security is now a myth. But employment security, that's an entirely different thing. Employment security says even if this job doesn't fit me anymore because the people have changed, the job has changed, the place has changed, the political climate has changed, the environment has changed. Even if all those things change and me and this job don't fit anymore, at least I have employment security, meaning I can do work, I have a skill set, I have a personality that's worth transitioning to another job. That's a whole different thing than job security, which says I go along to get along. And when the peer pressure says you've got to agree with these ideas in order to keep your job, you're willing to say, I'm done with the job then. Because those ideas are contrary to my core values. I will hold on to my core values, my work ethic, my skill set, my intellect, my personality, my ability to get along with others. I will take those traits and my core values, and I'll go find another job. I'm not worried about job security. You can't threaten me with that because I have employment security. I have the ability to get a job. I have the ability to gain wealth in other places. This is not the only opportunity that I have. That shift in mindset allows you to hold on to your values in a much deeper way. But if you're not sure what those values are, then you're not going to know when they're being tested. I challenge you as a leader to take some time and write down your values. What are the things that you wouldn't sell out for? What are the expectations that might be asked of you at which you would just say, that's where I draw the line. I will leave my job before I will do that. Before I will participate in behavior like that. Before I'll sign on the dotted line for that. Before I'll treat my employees that way. Before I will say that I agree with that concept. I will leave my job and go find a job elsewhere. If you don't have anything in your life like that you would say, I would risk it all to hold on to this value. I would risk it all to be able to say, I stood when there was a question. It's not a matter of a pay raise. You can't buy it that way. It's not a matter of vacation time. You can't buy my values that way. It's not a matter of a promotion or extra responsibilities. You can't buy my values that way. When you cross this line, I leave. I can't stay when that's the case. Until you have values like that, you will always be controlled by the incentives and the enticements to do what's expedient, politically expedient, or at least expedient for the moment based on the peer pressure and the organization. When you have core values, you will find the deeper your values, the more often they're tested. Not only because people pursue the opportunity to test your values to see how deeply you hold them, but also to see how strong they are, because most people struggle with knowing what their core values are and holding on to something. When they see somebody who has core values that are held deeply, it's puzzling. It's confusing. They want to know, are these values real? Will they stand up for you if you stand up for them? You need core values like that in your life. But you'll also find that in the hometown that I grew up in, we had a couple of streets where the oak trees were actually growing literally in the middle of the street. In a couple of those places, down on Avenue D, you could make that left turn and there was this enormous oak tree. And they had actually put a rock planter around the outside of it. It almost became its own roundabout right in the middle of the street because it took up so much of the street. You had to squeeze by it on either side. And they eventually widened the road a little bit to drive around this tree rather than cutting the tree down. And when you have core values that are that strong, you have to go around them. People have to learn to navigate around your core values. I don't like to use profanity in the workplace. Well, everybody else does. Just be like everybody else. Well, no, I don't do that. I don't play music that's unedited. Well, but the customer wants that. Well, then they hired the wrong person. They need to hire somebody who likes to play that kind of music. I don't, because I don't want to take a chance of playing that offensive music at another event. That kind of core value, that kind of standing your ground is like the tree in the middle of the road. It's not just going to be tested because people want to see, is that a real tree? Is that really actually in the middle of the road? But it's going to be tested because I don't even know how many drunks in the middle of the night have run into that tree thinking, surely it's not in the middle of the road. I'm seeing things. I got double vision. That tree's actually off to the side of the road. Or they've hit a parked car trying to go around the tree in the middle of the night because they're flabbergasted that a tree of that substance, of that size, happens to be in the middle of the road. Your core value is well-founded. Your core values that cannot be purchased at any price. No amount of cash under the table, no amount of pay raise or promotion or vacations or other incentives will cause you to back off from your core values. When that's the case, it's going to be true that people are just going to run into your core values on a regular basis because they don't expect to see them there. They're going to find you to be an anomaly. They're going to see you as the one who can't be bought, and that's a problem. The one who won't be swayed, and now that's a challenge. You, for people who love to push things left and right, up and down, sideways, north and south, and east and west, and just move the whims of the day through policy. Move the political winds of change through administrative objectives, bureaucratic overreach, all of those kinds of things that impact your daily life as a leader. They will run headlong into your core values like a tree in the middle of the road. And I challenge you to ask yourself, what are those core values that I hold on to? What are the ones that I would say, no pay raise, no promotion, no incentives, no paycheck, no peer pressure, no political pressure will cause me to change what I believe about this? Then I challenge you to write that down in your journal so that you can refer back to it. Because the more times you see it, the more times you say it, the more times you convince yourself that it's true, the more true it will be. And every time you do that, that tree trunk just becomes a little bigger. Those roots go a little bit deeper. You water them a little bit more, and you hold on to the values that will hold on to you when the storm comes. If you don't have those values, you're going to get blown around. If you do have those values, when the storm comes, you'll have something worth holding on to. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast for Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.